Hey everybody, it's Romania Black, and we're on episode 2 of Chainsaw Man, and last episode was really good. I liked it. It was a solid starter, really good starting to the season, getting us acquainted with Denji and Pochita, who is now incorporated into Denji's heart, literally, and I really enjoyed that episode. And I've got some cool notes from people from Patreon in the last week. The first episode is not aired on YouTube yet, and I will say before I start my notes real quick, because if you're not familiar with my channel, I do some notes if I find them from people's comments, and so I do like reading the comments and interacting with you all. But I will say this, and I put a note on Twitter, I've put a note on the community post, and I'm going to put a note on the comment for the first episode on YouTube. Please do not spoil me. I have been told that the Chainsaw Man fandom is real apt to spoil people about the contents of the series. I don't make any money off of YouTube. I just put my stuff on YouTube on my channel for, for fun, to talk to people and for exposure. And then anything that I get is from Patreon. So I've put on there that if people start spoiling, all you have to do is spoiler tag. Just spoiler tag your stuff. If you guys want to talk about spoilers in the comment, just spoiler tag it so I don't read it. But if anybody tries to spoil me, I'll just pull it from YouTube and just keep it on Patreon only. And then whenever the series is all done, then I'll put it up on YouTube, and I just won't answer comments on there so that I'm not spoiled for the next season. Because I'm as popular as the show has been so far, I'm sure it's going to have a next season already. Yeah, so it's just one of those series. But yeah, just want to get that out of the way. Just don't spoil. That's all you have to do, right? And so I do have some comments, though, about the first episode before we dive into this second one. So Wim had a really cool comment about Denji's fashion, and that his clothes are kind of oversized, and had this really cool theory that it could be that Denji got his clothes from his dad, which is kind of morbid because his dad died and then he just inherited his clothes. But as poor as Denji was, or is, then it's not really surprising. So I thought that was a really cool thing to bring up. Kind of sad though. Sam Mala had some awesome stuff. Like, I was trying to pick out all the references in the OP, and I was like getting some of them, but I'm like, man, and I didn't want to look it up because, again, the internet is full of spoilers and I confine myself away from it. So Sam Mala had listed all the references, both literary and movie-wise, that are in the OP, which I'm like, yes. And some of them I was like, oh yeah. So we have the Divine Comedy, Inferno, Canto 22, which is the angels and demons in the background. A lot of Quentin Tarantino, which I'm like, just from episode 1, I was like, oh, Fujimoto is a Quentin Tarantino fan, which is fine because I'm a Tarantino fan, so I'm like all about it. But yeah, we have Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, we have Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, there's also No Country for Old Men, and then, of course, the image of Denji holding Pochita in front of the gravestones, it's from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I was like, oh, that's what it's from. I knew it was an iconic image, and I was like, it's one of those that's like, it's right there in front of you, right? So there's that. Sadako versus Kyoko, I think, is where they're going into the well or diving at each other. I thought it was The Ring or The Grudge, of course. Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, which I thought was a very clever reference because we have the Tomato Devil in the first episode. So Fujimoto putting Attack of the Killer Tomatoes in there is kind of a nice little nod to that. Don't Look Up. That's interesting. Jacob's Ladder, which is the angel on the stairs. And if you know anything about your biblical references, that's the angel on the stairs, and then referencing it, the movie Jacob's Ladder, is rather interesting. So we'll see about that. And then speaking of which, Constantine, which deals with angels and demons. I liked that. The Big Lebowski, of course. The thing with power, I thought it was like He-Man or She-Ra, but it's from Thor Love and Thunder and the poster from it. And I was like, oh, which... To be fair, Thor Love and Thunder is drawing a lot of inspiration in its branding and its font from like 80s font like He-Man and She-Ra, so not too far off. And then there's also the Leucochleordium paradoxium species, which is a parasite. That image is in the background, which kind of ties to Pochita being literally a parasite now keeping Denji alive, so that's kind of cool. And then Naruto the Shippuden. The OP6 called Sign and the QB8 Tails is referenced. Why not? Why not reference Naruto? And then the Golden Balls Fight Club, which I like Chuck Palahniuk a lot. I like his side stories, so I was like, okay, that Chuck Palahniuk, Quentin Tarantino, him drawing inspiration from them, like, I totally get on board with that. The explosion is Goodbye Eri, which we've read before, so I'm excited to watch this OP again and see all this imagery. And then, of course, we have, I like this. It's a satire cartoon or graffiti, but it's equity, equality, and reality, which I think, again, ties into that idea of the cost of living and everything at the beginning of this episode, at the beginning of the last episode and the theme that was running throughout it, the idea of equity, equality, and reality, and them all tying together. I like that thematic choice in the OP. And then, of course, Evangelion. I was like, oh, I thought it was Alien, but it's Evangelion because he's bursting out of like the marble angel. Okay, cool, like it, and it's all bloody and gross. And then, of course, there's some horror movies that are thrown in there, Hereditary and Midsommar. I was like, okay, Midsommar. And then Hellboy rounds it out, which seems apt. So I liked that. So thank you, Sam Mala, for giving us all those references. I'm excited to see them all in order now watching the OP. Some dude pointed out that Denji's comment about hug me could have been his attempt to flirt with that girl, which granted, Denji's not been around any girls really that we know of in his life. So him attempting to flirt with them seems like a deal. Now, will his antics bear any fruit? I don't think so. I think this girl's like all business and he's going to try to flirt and she's going to be like, no, I'm taking you in. You're going to be my dog, but nice try. So I think that's where that's going to go, but we'll see. And then Christopher Peterson pointed out that the teeth and eyes, do they mean anything? Because yeah, Denji has like pointy teeth, but he had pointy teeth before he became the demon. And then Power seems to have pointy teeth. If it's just like a design aspect, which it could be. But then I think the eyes that Power and the other girl have, they look similar and they kind of look like otherworldly. So I'm like, is that a sign they have a demon inside of them? We'll see. But before we start, one last thing, and I know this is a long intro. It was pointed out in the Discord that there was one reactor that had talked about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is like a basic psychology chart, but that it's tying to like where Denji is starting in the story and where he could end up. So this will likely end up on Whiteboard-kun at some point, but I think that the first episode does a nice job of addressing Denji's physiological needs. So you're talking about air, water, food, shelter, sleep, clothing, the desire to have sex. Like that's all like physiological, the bottom of the pyramid, basic needs that Denji is just trying to attain, right? He has nothing else because he has the bare bones. He just wants to get like that bottom of that pyramid established. And it seems by the end of episode 1 that he at least has a foundation where he might have found a way for him to get food, shelter, sleep and clothing, and maybe some sex on the side. We don't know. But he at least has found a means of getting that base of the pyramid by working with this girl and the organization that she's with, the Public Safety Commission, right? So there's that. The next step is safety needs, which means your personal security, employment, resources, health, and property, which could, again, tie into him working for this girl and this organization. So that could tie into his physiological and safety needs. Then from there, the middle step of the pyramid is love and belonging, which is friendship, intimacy, family, and a sense of connection. And so I'm assuming that the Nakama he meets along the way are going to be his way of establishing that middle of the pyramid. And then comes esteem, which is the next step, which is respect, self-esteem, status, recognition, strength, and freedom, which maybe by attaining the powers that Pachitas gave him, by attaining this position, by meeting these people, he'll then be able to focus on himself and attain that kind of self-esteem, respect, recognition, and status through the work that he does this season. We'll see. And then finally, the top of the pyramid is self-actualization, which is the desire to become the most that one can be. So if you got all the basics down, then the only thing to do is to figure out where to go to from there and how to help yourself. So I like the idea that it could be this series with Denji is focusing on that, on Maslow's hierarchy of needs and seeing how he attains all of those things or doesn't. So I thought that was really cool. I'm going to save that, probably going to go back to it and reference it throughout the season. So yeah, I took less than 10 minutes. We're solid. But yeah, so I'm pretty excited to see what's going to happen in episode 2. I have humbly stayed off Twitter today, not gone on it. I had already prearranged some tweets to be sent out about the shows that I was watching today. And I was like, nope, staying off. Tuesdays is my off Twitter day so that I'm not spoiled. I stay off of Twitter so I can avoid all the tweets, which I've got everything muted, but you know stuff sneaks in. So with that being said, we're going to dive into episode 2 and just see what's up. So let's find out, shall we? We're going to start episode 2 of Chainsaw Man. And we are going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. I have a a feeling I am really going to like Denji's character. And I'll be honest, Denji's character is such a bro. But normally, this is kind of the crazy thing, right? He has this character trait that I'm usually not about at all with characters, but he's so damn endearing that it's actually really charming, and you're just like, oh, little Denji. I think it's because he's so innocent, because he doesn't know any better. He's again, if we're doing the hierarchy of needs, right? So we have, again, I'm glad that this was brought up at the beginning. So at the very top is self-actualization, right? Denji is far from that, way off, right? So you got that. Then we have self-esteem. We're not there yet. We have friendship. I think that's what he's realizing is I think Denji's realizing that the top of the pyramid is missing. He doesn't have the top of the pyramid yet, right? But then we have safety. And then down here at the bottom, we have our physiological needs. All right. We have gainfully secured the first two parts of the pyramid, the easy parts, the basic needs to survive and a job. We've got some security, got some food and shelter, got all that. We're just, it's this part up here that's usually the hard part to actualize and get, right? And Denji's working on it. But here's the thing. It's funny I'm wearing a Death Note sweater. But there's a character in Death Note, if you've never watched that series, whose name is Light. And Light's character has a bit of a god complex. No spoilers, he just does. Has a bit of an ego, a bit of a god complex. And normally those types of character traits would really be ones that would turn you off of a character where you'd be like, no, I don't like this egotistical blah. But there's something about Light's character that is so charming and endearing that it's almost like he's so confident in it, and the way that he portrays it in the series, it becomes endearing and kind of charming to a point. And you're like, oh, okay, well, I can get on board with this character despite these traits because of how they present themselves. And that's kind of like Denji. Like, Denji just wanting to touch a woman's boobs. That's the goal. That's it. He wants to touch a woman's boobs and feel her up. That's literally it. And normally I'd be like, But with his character, he's so naive and innocent about it that it's like, okay, I'm rooting for Denji to get his hands on some boobs. That's where we're at, right? And he's so just honest and genuine about it that you find yourself like, yeah, go for it, Denji. Get your hands on that set. But Makima, we'll talk about her. She is quite interesting. And then Power's not what I thought she was going to be either. I was like, aha, okay. So the thing about Denji that the first episode clearly sets up for us, but it's one of those things where episode 1, we followed Denji by himself. And so we got a good idea of Denji's character. But the thing that's kind of crazy about it is that we are seeing now that Denji's around other people other than the Yakuza who treated him like a worm. We see that Denji is really kind of not socially inept, but he's literally been around no one that has been kind to him or shown him any remote semblance of kindness. So when Aki beats the snot out of him, he doesn't even flinch from that because he's used to that. He's like, no, I've dealt with this my whole life. You beating the tar out of me is nothing new. Welcome to my Tuesday, right? But Makima giving her the coat off her back completely throws him off because it's a gesture of kindness, and that's something he is not used to at all. So it's just kind of so bizarre to see how backwards everything is for him. And it makes you really kind of like Denji's a little bit humbled, right? But also Denji kind of sees things from a different perspective because like he tells Aki, he's like, I've never had any of this. So yeah, I'll gladly be someone's dog if it means I get to have food. And it's like, yeah, it's to the point where it's like when the fact that Denji is willing to be a dog for someone and that's a better position than he's been his whole life is saying something, right? But yeah, Makima, she's fascinating. And Denji, he's like, I'm Denji. Like, he's just so sweet. And she's like, I need to tell you something right now. And she's like, you're in my care, which means that you do as I say. She's like, I expect yes or woof from answers. I don't need a dog that says no. So let's talk about Makima. I love her name. It's cool. All right, so Makima, she wants dogs that are loyal. And she has no use for insubordination. No use for that. Mm-mm. She's like, if you're not going to work for me and do as I tell you to, then I have no use for you. So is Makima perhaps a little bit of a control freak? Maybe. I'm seeing the writing on the wall with that. Also going to put Aki. We're going to put Aki right here. And just say that Aki is in fact a loyal dog himself to Makima. Because as he tells Denji, he owes her his life. She saved him just like she saved Denji. She's been scrounging up all the scraps and bringing them to her wing to use however she wants to, and Aki's one of them. And then we have Denji. Sweet bean Denji. And we'll have Power on here eventually. I like Power's character a little bit more now than I thought I was going to. When we get to her, I'll explain why. Because now I'm like, oh, okay. No, I'm all about her. So yeah, it even says woof later with the udon. And so Denji's kind of like, oh. He's like, when you say that, it makes it sound like you're using me. And I'm like, she is very much using you. And she says, someone in forensics once told me that when we get dogs that aren't helpful, we put them down. I'm like, what forensics group are you working with, girl? So she's like, yeah, I have no use for a dog that's not going to be useful. No use for that. And Denji, I do like the dog motif that we have in this series, that we have Pochita, who's the dog devil that's inside and functioning his heart. We have Denji realizing he's being used like a dog. It's all very interesting, right? But he's like, I thought she was nice. And I kind of liked her. And I had no idea she was scary like this. So yeah, so Denji has this question that he's running through in his mind. Like, is Makima good? That is a very good question. Aki seems to think so and tells him so, but defining good may be a big point of this series. Like, how do we define that, right? So he said that he thought she was nice. He thought she was nice and he liked her, but she's scary. Yeah, she's like, I really don't need you. If you're not going to be used to me, I'll just kill you and move on. And it's like, okay, here we go. She's treating me like a damn dog. But then he sees Pochita, right? But here's the thing. He's like, he gets mad at first being like, well, she's just treating me like a dog. Like, that's just like all the Yakuza were. But then he sees Pochita, right? And realizes that, well, he liked Pochita even though he was a dog. So maybe that's not, Denji like has this look on his face like, maybe that's not a bad thing. Just because you're a dog doesn't mean you can't be loved by someone, right? So he kind of says that maybe, looks like he has to think that maybe being a dog could also equal being loved. Because he loved Pochita and he was a dog, so that necessarily might not be a bad thing, right? And so he's like, ugh. And then he's like, I just remembered how Pochita's dead. Like, I'm so sad my dog is dead. And then his stomach growling. He's like, oh, sorry. And so she's like, well, we'll just grab breakfast at this rest area. It's fine. And so I was trying to see what this gate said up here. It said, falling objects can lead to huge accidents. Make sure anything on top of your car is securely tied down. Okay. So that's pretty general. And so, yeah, and he's like, I'm sorry, I don't have any cash. She's like, I can't pay for my food. And she's like, oh, that's fine. I'll pay. And he's like, oh, what? Really? And she's like, yeah, but you look conspicuous without a shirt, so you can wear this. And she's like, here you go. And of course, then she's like, I'm wearing a lady's coat. I'm wearing her coat. And he's like, all my life, people avoided me, saying I'm filthy and I smell bad. Here's the thing. She makes the point of saying that she can smell people. She has a good sense of smell. Like, she can judge people's character, right? And that is such a cool tie-in to Denji saying that his whole life he was ignored because he supposedly smelled bad and was filthy and nobody wanted to give him the time of day. But this girl just took her nice coat off and gave it to him despite everything. And then later says that she has a good sense of smell. So Denji's like, well, that must mean that I've not been a bad person this whole time because you're being kind to me. So maybe it was them that were just unkind. It wasn't me, right? So I love that. I love that connection there. He's like, no one's ever been nice to me before, much less a girl who looks this good. And that's the thing. Like, Denji's never been treated nice by anybody. So at first he's like, I'll take anything. He's like, any sense of kindness, anything to get this bottom foundation going, we're on board with it, right? And his little blushy face, where he's just like, I love her. And I was like, oh my God, no, Denji, no. Our poor boy, he's instantly in love. He is instantly. And I'm going to put in love in quotations. Instantly in love with Makima. It's so crazy because, yeah, he says, I love her. But I'm like, dude, you've known her. This is not a Disney movie. You've known her for 5 minutes. You don't love her. You are accepting of her kindness and you love that she's kind to you and you have this. He's starved for affection, right? So I'm going to put down here also in the corner. Again, I feel the need to do it, but I'm going to put the little NGE corner over here. If you know what that is, you know what that is. But I'm just going to put Denji and starved for affection. And I'm going to put Shinji down here. And all I'm going to put is Makima versus a big K there. And you'll know what I'm talking about. Because both there's a character in Neon Genesis as well as Makima who show affection and show kindness towards both Shinji and Denji. And they instantly are like in love with that. And so it's very similar, right? So it's the question of, is it really love or is it that you've just not had any attention at all your whole life? And so now you will gravitate and grab a hold of anything that you get. Is that truly love, right? That's a big question. And I feel like as Denji goes on this journey, he's going to meet people and see people that can be kind to him as well. And it's like, okay, well, do you love them like you love Makima? Or are you starting to differentiate what love actually is? Because I don't think Denji really knows what love is. I think Pochita was the only thing he really loved in his life before meeting her. And so then we have the introduction, which I felt like the OP sounded different. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it's just me. I'll have to go back and listen to episode 1 again and see if they're different. But yeah, we didn't get Chainsaw Man at all in this episode. This was just all arriving in Tokyo and getting the setup, which was fun. For being a setup episode, introducing our other 2 characters, Aki and Power, in addition to Makima, I thought it was a pretty solid episode in terms of that, right? So yeah. So them they go to the gas station to get the udon. And so, yeah, their options are ramen, udon, soba, curry rice, curry udon, a corn dog, and sausage. You know you're in the sticks when your options include a corn dog. He's like, udon and sausage. Like, Denji, and he's all blushy. He's just so happy to, he's like, is that cool? He's like, can I get udon and a sausage? Like, our boy has never had udon before in his life. Ever. I've had udon before. And, dude. And she's like, sure, I'll take a curry udon. She likes it spicy. Okay. We'll see it. And he's like, oh, that sounds good too. And then I was like, Denji. She's like, whoa there. So Denji but I don't know if he actually, I think he just collapsed and just happened to land in her bosom. I don't think it was intentional. Interesting. And so they say, give me a second. And he's like, oh, and they're like, it's 1,100 yen, which wasn't very expensive. But when you think back, it's not very expensive, but when you think back to it, he was talking about how he had 1,800 yen to last him the month. And they just spent 1,100 yen on that one meal. So to Denji, this is like a feast. To Denji, this is like dining in the Ritz compared to what he's used to. And he's like, the chainsaws cut me up too. So I lost a lot of blood. I'm a little low on blood right now. So yeah, he has an 8. He's low on blood. And she asks how he ended up like this. And so he basically explains that Pochita replaced his heart. And he's like, and it has all the images of him and Pochita since they were kids. He's like, Pochita died for my sake. And so she kind of looks at him funny. She just looks at him like, oh, you are different. Like, you have something special inside of you, right? Because he's not a fiend. We've established that. He's something kind of like this weird hybrid. And she's like, there's not a lot of precedent for your condition, even from a historical perspective. But I'm like, that does not mean that there's not anybody like him out there. I fully believe that there's others like Denji out there. There's just not very many, right? Because usually it seems like it's a case like Power, where they're a fiend and they're a corpse that's been inhabited by a devil, or they've been possessed. But this is something like more hybridized. She's like, it doesn't even have a name. But she's like, I believe you. And then she's like, I have a good sense of smell. So I can tell. And she's like, Pochita's still alive inside of him. Yeah. Not in a sentimental sense. Like, he's not just alive in your heart. He is literally bound to you. You have the sense of both a human and a devil. And I love that Denji's like, well, that's awesome. He's like, that's really awesome. Pochita's still alive. I'd be a little scared if I had a parasitic devil inside my heart keeping me alive. But, you know, it's Pochita, so he's so cute. So, yeah, so basically Denji is this hybrid of human and devil, which is considered to be rare. And of course, Makima seems like she just wants to collect all the rare things to her cause. So, and then he passes out, right? But her boobs are not there to help him this time. And so then he wakes up and he's like, oh no, udon. And she did wait for him, didn't she? I think she sat there and waited on him. Yeah, and he's got his hot dog, his sausage, and his udon there. And she's like, is it cool if I eat my udon? And she's like, are you all right? Can you eat on your own? And then he says, she's like, can you eat on your own? Are you good? And he was like, oh, I can not. So that she'll feed him. She's like, I cannot. Denji is not subtle at all. Not at all. Not subtle whatsoever. He's like, oh, I can eat. I cannot. Like, just so she'll feed him. And then she tells him, say, ah, and feeds him the noodle. And then she's like, is it good? And he's like, woof. Oh my God. Oh my God. Which I'm wondering if the woof is partially because of Pochita. Is that like influencing him a little bit, maybe? And she's like, wow, you're really sweet to be eating this soggy udon. And it's like, girl, he has never had like food that nice. She's like, a lot like a dog. And then he asks her name. And she's like, oh, I'm Makima. And then she says, is there a type of guy that you like? And she's almost kind of like, oh, that was rather forward of you. But again, Denji's not really had any experience with women, so he's just like, I'm just going to come out and ask. That's one attribute about him I really like, that he's so honest. He's very blunt, and he just gets to the point. He's just like, this is how I live, so sure, let's just talk about it. So she says that her type is the Denji type, which in my book connects I don't think that's a lie, because it's connecting up here. She likes a guy that will let her do whatever she wants, and she likes a guy that's loyal and do what she says. So yeah, and Denji is the epitome of that right now. So she's like, yeah. And he's just like, oh. And she's like, I guess my type would be, I'm into the Denji type, the one that just will do whatever I say and let me control him. And Denji, who's just like, that means she likes me. And it's like, oh, honey, oh, no. You sweet summer child. Oh, no. And he's just dazed by it. He's like, he repeats it in his head and he's dazed by it. And so he's like, and he tells her, he's like, oh, I like you too, Miss Makima. And she's already gone. Like, he doesn't get a chance to tell her. So I like the attention to detail that the suit jacket she's wearing is a little snug. It's not quite the right dimensions. So he's just kind of like, eh. And so we go to the Tokyo headquarters for Devil Hunters, which is a pretty nice big old building there, the Tokyo headquarters. So we get some lore in this. We get some lore and the fact that in Tokyo, so we get the idea that in Tokyo there are thousands of devil hunters. Okay. So it's pretty prevalent, including civilians. So like where Denji was from, there was only a handful, but now that we're in the big city, big fish in a little pond, it's now a lot different. But the public safety has the best benefits and a lot of paid vacation. So yeah, basically the public safety is like the top corporate ladder of the devil hunters. So yeah, you can work for your mom and pop devil hunting association, but if you're with the Public Safety Commission, you probably got a salary and some retirement plans. If you make it that far, right? A lot of paid vacation time. The idea of devil hunters having paid vacation time is actually hilarious. So then Denji's like, okay, but that doesn't matter to Denji. That's the thing. Like he's getting this safety thing checked off, but for Denji, he's like, okay, cool, paid vacation. I don't know what that is. Never had a job before other than just working the odd jobs to survive. He's like, I'll do whatever I have to. Instead, he's like, I wonder if Miss Makima likes me. Then maybe if we work together, we'll eventually get together. He's already thinking like, he's already going on the shonen protagonist journey. He's already predicting the end point. He's like, I'll have to cut my hair short, get an anime dad haircut. We'll have kids that look like little blends of us, but they'll probably look like they'll look like her, but they'll have gold hair. Like he's already predicting the ending of the story, right? He's like, I wonder if we work together, we'll eventually get together. And I love how he phrases, he's like, and if we get together, we can get together, right? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. He's like, I want to get together with her real bad. I love it, Denji. He's like, his goal, he has several goals, but one goal is to get with Makima. That's at the top of his priorities. And to do so, he has to work with her. Interesting. And so then she's like, look, Denji, she's like, you need to wear this uniform. You're not going to wear my coat all day. I'll need that back. Once you've changed, I'll introduce you to a coworker. And so, of course, Denji doesn't know how to tie a tie. Why would he? He's never had to tie a tie before in his life. I think that's funny. So he's just sitting there trying to fiddle with it. And then we have Aki. Aki, I freaking love him. He is so serious. So serious. Kind of Fushiguro vibes a little bit. But so different, yeah. So Aki, I love he has the sword, the red string that's connecting it. He's very put together, has the suit, the tie, he's very polished. He is the polar opposite of Denji. The polar opposite. Even down to his hair being up in the little neat little Pokemon sprig, right? Although he does look very good with his hair down. More of that, please. She's like, Aki Hayakawa. He started 3 years before you. So she's had him in her service. So he has been a devil hunter with the public safety for 3 years. Okay. All right. So we got that established. And Denji just kind of looking him up and down, like, how do I read you, dude? What's up with you? Like, just looking him up and down. And she's like, you're going to shadow him today. And he's like, well, I'm not working with you. And she's like, no. And he's like, that should be obvious. You're not even in her league. And he's like, no, Miss Makima. Yeah, Aki is instantly like, who do you think you are, you scrub? She's way out of your league, right? I also find it very interesting that we have this portrait, like the Dante portrait there of this devil spearing this person into the sea. This ominous painting that's just sitting in her office. Interesting. And she's just like, He's like, I want to work with this Makima. And she seems pleased by that. She's like, okay. She's like, you will do anything I say. I like this. And so, was that Studio Ghibli meme where she's like, you're stupid. I like that in a man. I feel like that's Makima to a T right now. She's like, oh, Denji, you're dumb. I like that. She's like, if you do a good job, we can work together someday. So her just like getting him, just stringing him along, and she ties the tie so perfectly and instantly. And I like that Aki's like, why are you giving him special treatment? So is Aki a little jealous of Denji? I think that to a shade, because he seems to, I don't know if he romantically likes Makima, but I think he is grateful to her And he is maybe a little bit jealous of maybe not romantically jealous of Denji, but I think he's a little bit jealous of the attention that Denji instantly has gotten from her, where he's like, I had to work hard to get this attention, right? But Makima is just like, if Denji does good, then he can work with her. Again, giving him a goal because she knows that he's all about her. All right. She's definitely using him, but it's like, and her eyes are interesting too. They look like targets. They look like bullseyes, and powers are crosses. So I'm very curious what we're going to find out with the eyes as we go, because that seems like it's somewhat important. Like Aki's eyes are not like that. They're blue. So I'm like, is Makima a fiend? Is she a demon? What do we do with that? Like, why is she like this? So, But she tightens a tie. And Denji, of course, like, Denji blushes just from her tying his tie. It's like, oh God, honey. So yeah. So they're just walking through town. I love the cityscape. I love how normal everything looks. And Denji, because he's so blunt, just comes out and asks. He's like, does Makima have a boyfriend? And Aki's like, I'm not dignifying you with a response. And he's like, come on. And of course, they're polar opposites. I want to make note, if you ever watched Haikyuu, we have Aki with the Kageyama blue eyes and the dark hair, and Denji has like the Shoyo Hinata, like red hair and amber eyes. Same color scheme. I like it. I think it's fun. And so he tells Denji to come with him. And just beats the snot out of him. But the thing of it is, he's like, look, you need to quit now. He like beats him up and kicks him to the trash. And then takes out the cigarette. I was like, I don't like smoking at all. I hate smoking. I hate the smell of smoke, but smoking does look really cool in anime and literature. It looks cool in media. Not cool in real life, but it looks cool in this. And Aki just sitting there smoking the cigarette and saying that you need to leave. You need to quit the job. And he's like, I'm going to keep kicking your ass until you do that. And Denji's like, why? And he's like, I'm trying to be nice. So yeah, Aki's got some tough love, right? Aki is trying to spare Denji from dying. He's like, look, I've worked with guys who are in it just for the money or are just in it for her. That's not going to work. You're going to die. He's like, you have to have a special reason to do these things. Otherwise, you're not, without that purpose, it's going to kill you. Denji, though, has a very pure purpose. It's just not what you'd think, right? But I do like that says something for Aki's character, that he's not just beating Denji up. Like, at first I was like, is this hazing? Is this initiation? But no, Aki's trying to scare him away so that he can get out now while the going's good and not have to suffer later. So I do like that. I like that a lot. That's a neat trait there, right? He says, I'm trying to be nice. People who start the job without thinking it through end up dead. And I've got colleagues who got into devil hunting for the payday and that got them killed by devils. Which, the thing about it is, Aki does not know why Denji's there. He doesn't know anything about Denji at all. So he's just assuming Denji's doing it for the money or doing it for Makima. And the Makima part is true, but Denji doesn't really care. He doesn't have any debts anymore, right? His debts are paid from the last episode. And the thing about it is that he's like, the survivors need real motivation. Denji has real motivation. Get with Makima. It's the power of love, baby. And so what I like is that Denji's not really disturbed by Aki's gestures. He's so used to it at this point from all these years past that he's just like, And then Aki says, you're just after Makima, right? That's why you took the job. And Denji says, ding, ding. You got it. And he's like, then I'm glad I hit you. And God, he throws the cigarette on him and then spits on the cigarette. I was like, oh my God. He's like, nah. He's like, I'll let her know you ran off and that you were scared by the devils. He's like, doing this for her isn't enough. Oh my God. But he kicks him right in the nuts. God, it's great. This whole sequence where Denji just kicks him in the balls is the funniest damn thing. Where he's like, you are a nice guy, aren't you? He's like, because when I fight a dude, it's nuts or nothing. It's nuts or nothing is the funniest damn thing. God, I can see why this show why this manga is popular. Yeah, just the iconic line, it's nuts or nothing. Oh my God. Like, again, what show does that? What show does that? He's like, nope, I'm going to kick you in the balls till you pass out. Oh, he's like, I had udon for the first... Yeah, I love how he's such a bro. He's like, dude, he's like, I had udon for the first time today, man. Like, I had my first bowl of it. He's like, I had a sausage too. He's like, I got treated for like a decent human being for the first time and had somebody even pay for my meal. It's like a dream come true for me. And Aki's like, what the fudge? So yeah, Denji's like, dude, I've been on death's door my whole life. This is nothing. Like, you're not scaring me away by telling me that devils could attack me. He's like, I've been there. So yeah, Denji is like to Aki, and I'll just put this over here. But yeah, Denji, he's just like, I've suffered my whole life. He's like, I am not leaving this security. Which is saying something when the most secure thing you can think of is being in a position where you could die by demons at any point. That you'd prefer that, right? And I love that Aki. And Aki has this crazy thing where he like just like takes his eyes and like zooms in. So Aki is kind of like, he does his like eyes focus. And he is learning, as he's learning about Denji, his eyes like getting kind of focused on him, like who are you? What is your deal? And he's just there twitching. And he's like, I didn't think it through when I started devil hunting. Yeah, because he first did it just to get money to survive. He's like, but if I keep up this kind of life, I don't care if it kills me. He's like, dude, I died before Poshita brought me back. He's like, at this point, I'm just going to do what I got to do. Right? And Aki's like, I take it back. It's not just my life anymore. And he's like, yeah, I like that he looks away. He's like, well, it's not just my life anymore. I got Pochita in here too. So it's kind of for him as well. Like, I like that Denji's kind of like thinking out loud there. And Aki's like, you idiot. You baka. And he's like, Makima is not the kind of woman a punk like you should be chasing. Again, Aki thinks that she's out of his league. He's like, she's not someone you should be doing this for. And he's like, well, what the hell are you saying? It sounds to me like you like her too. And Aki, like, again, he just kicks her in the balls. God. He's like, you really did only aim for my balls. It's like, yeah. He passes out. And then she's like, well, I guess I should take him back to headquarters. He's like, shit. I love he's like, shit, now what do I do? And Makima's like, you've been gone for 30 minutes. And he brings him back. He's like, the big guy's testicles were attacked by the nut devil, ma'am. Ma'am. By the nut devil, ma'am. God, I love Denji. He's absolutely amazing. He's just so, like, just tries to pull it off. And then Aki's like, he's lying. I hate him. And she's like, well, you guys are getting along. He's like, do you think you two can work together? And they're like, no way. He's a piece of trash. She's like, I'm glad you're hitting it off. Again, it's funny because the whole hitting it off thing kind of reminds me of Masato to Shinji and Asuka in scenes, particularly in the rebuild. I just watched the rebuild for that, so there's a scene in there that reminded me of it. But yeah, kind of like the thing of Masato's like, oh, you two, you're going to be together because you need to learn how to communicate with one another. Kind of reminds me of that. But yeah, and she's like, you're going to be joining his unit. And Aki's like, I hate my life. He's like, this punk. He's like, I've already got enough troublemakers, don't I? Adding another, I don't know. She's like, I told you when I put it together that your team's an experimental one operating differently from the usual method. And Denji's just yawning like he's not used to how any of this structure works. Denji yawning, he's not used to how the structure of this job, or any job, really works. So we have the idea that Unit 4 is experimental. And that the higher ups don't like him. It has a Jujutsu Kaisen vibe to it, where it's like you're kind of like, you know, the higher ups want to destroy you, but we're going to use you as a special unit. It's curious that Aki's the one put in charge, but based on his personality, he seems to have a very strong, centered moral code, and he's very driven by justice and works for Makima and owes her his life, so she can trust him with this unit because she knows he's not going to be insubordinate. So there's that. And he's like, what is he? She's like, he's a human, but he can turn into a devil. So and then I like Denji's like, pretty sweet, right? I'm super special. And she's like, and Aki says he thought they were rumors. And she said he's special. That's why he's going to be receiving special treatment. And then she makes the ultimatum to him, saying that if he tries to leave, that he's going to die. He'll dispose of as a devil. And Aki's like, and Aki kind of sees, in that moment, Aki's like, okay, he totally gets it. I love that there's little tiny micro gestures and micro expressions that Aki does when he looks over, like, did you hear that? Did you get that, Denji? So Denji realizes that Denji will stay with her forever. He's going to be with her forever. She's like, you're not going anywhere. You're going to stay with me until I'm done using you. So have fun with that. And then he's like, what's that mean? And she says that it means you're working together until you die. And so, yeah. So Denji is like, okay. And Aki's like, you're going to be living with me so I can keep an eye on you. And if you try to run off, I can kill you. I've got permission to do that. And that's when Denji asks, he's thinking about it. So he's like, is Miss Makima a bad person? So yeah, Denji's kind of thinking it over. He's like living with her, working for her forever. It sounds kind of like what the Yakuza were doing, right? Because the Yakuza were telling Denji he was going to be paying off their debts until he dies. And now he's kind of in the same situation where he's working with her until he dies. So for Denji, he's kind of thinking like, this seems like the situation I was in at the start of this series, only that situation was even worse because I didn't have any money or food or shelter or anything like that. He's like, he's like, is Makima a bad person? And Aki, he's like, if you think that's the case, then give up on her. He's like, if you think she's bad, you need to leave now because you may be proven right, right? If you're really a devil, you should just be grateful she doesn't kill you. And he's like, well, we're devil hunters. Got that? And he's like, so she's a good person then? And he's like, of course she is. And he says, she saved my life. So yeah, so there's this interesting conversation of if Makima is good or not. Does she have the right things in mind? Maybe. And maybe too, when she's like, I can't just let you go, Denji. Like a devil human hybrid like you, the higher ups would either instantly kill you or you could get targeted by some like nastier, shadier people. So her taking him under her wing is probably an act of kindness to her, right? Because they could kill him, right? That he hasn't really proven himself except they saw him slaughter a bunch of people, right? But Denji, I like Denji's thinking it over. He's just sitting there like thinking about her being like, okay, like, do I trust her or not? And he's like, and then he just blushes like instantly. He's like, Miss Makima, I hope I get to hug her again. And I love that Aki's like, you got to hug her? Like, just, yeah, at that point, I love that Aki's so distraught and surprised that Denji got to hug her. And Denji's just sitting there like just daydreaming. Yeah, does Aki like Makima? Perhaps he does. But not head over heels foolishly in love like Denji is. And then, oh my god, strawberry jam, ume jam, plum jam, orange jam, all of the jams together. He just gets them all out, and some butter and honey, and then cinnamon. He goes all out. The best toast ever right here. He just slathers it all on. It's like the first time he's ever had jam on toast, and he just puts it all together. and just has all of it. And he's like, it's so good. And I love that just like there's the mess everywhere. And it's freaking fantastic. And I love Aki. Aki's just like. Aki is a neat freak. A neat freak, or maybe not a neat freak, but he keeps a clean home. Right? He keeps a clean home. And Denji is just trashes Aki's place. I relate to Aki so much in these scenes because I in my car, whenever I have my little cousins with me, I'm like, you don't leave food in here, you take food out, we clean this out. Like I'm not a neat freak, but I like keeping a clean space. And so that jam thing, I'd just be sitting there like, I need to clean it up. Like I'd be like Aki being like, oh my God. And then I love he's sitting there banging on the tub, being like with the tub there going this. He's just singing out loud. And Aki, I love Aki's little shirt there as he's doing the laundry. He's like, oh my God. He's like, how long are you going to be in there? And he falls asleep on the toilet, using all the toilet paper. Oh my God. I'd been like, if I went to the bathroom and then suddenly the toilet paper was all gone and it's just there and he didn't replace it, I'd been like, he has to go. Although Aki, God, he looks really good with his hair down. Mm-hmm. All about that agenda. And I just love it. His eye just twitches. I love that Aki's little micro expression is his eyes. Like when he was down on the ground after Denji beat him up and everything, he was just, his eye twitching. Like that's just his little expression. It's absolutely wonderful. And I love it. So yeah, a fiend has been reported in East Narima residence. So we find out what a fiend is, right? We find out what a fiend is. And because Denji doesn't know these terms, and we find out the police are on pretty good terms with Hayakawa and his unit. And we see that there's clearly been 3 people there, but now there's only 1, right? And I like that Denji has an axe. He's just like an axe murderer, you know? And Hayakawa has the sword. And then Hayakawa's like, did you never go to school or something? And we get confirmation that Denji's like, nah, man, no, I didn't go to school. And again, Aki like goes and looks back at him. Like it's the subtlest little things. Like Aki, he gestures very little. It's all in his eyes. His eyes are so expressive. So when Denji's like, nah, man, I didn't go to school. And he's like, oh, okay. Like Aki's learning little things about Denji. And it's like he's piecing the puzzle together, being like, oh, this is why the way that you are. This is all making sense now as we go. And so he's like, when a devil takes control of a human corpse, you get a fiend. So a fiend is a devil or a demon that took control of a human corpse. Okay. So that's interesting. So yeah, so we'll talk about power with that in a minute. But Denji's like, well, doesn't that make me a fiend? Because it kind of happened to me. And he's like, no, fiends have characteristic heads. Like they always have something that's off with their head. It'll be obvious once you see him. And then of course they say, like we see the magazines and he's eating the bird. Ugh. And he's like, the devil controls the fiend's personality. You can kill this one. Show me what you can do. And then she's like, oh, he's like, that'll help me figure out if you're of any use. And then she's like, well, I don't want to get blood everywhere, so I'm not going to do that. Which Denji's whole thing is like, he just takes the axe and kills him in one swipe. And the thing about it is, Denji has probably killed fiends and not realized they were fiends for years, or he's killed like devils that are small fry like this, and so he kind of can gauge maybe what their power level is, and he's like, oh, this guy isn't much of a threat. So he just does it in one swipe. And that's it. And Aki's like, well, why didn't you use your powers? And he says, well, I kind of things get real messed up when I kill with my powers. And he's like, I could have ended up like this fiend, right? So he was like, he felt sorry for him. He felt sorry for the fiend. He's like, I wanted to make it painless for him. And I like how Denji establishes that he he wants to be as humane as possible, even to the devils. Because he has one inside of him. He knows what that's like. He's like Pochita. He's like, I know what that's like. I wouldn't want to just kill Pochita. And Aki, one thing I like about Aki too is that he doesn't outwardly get mad, really. He just calmly like holds it in and then like applies that force. So like when he slowly walks over to Denji and he forces him against the window and he tells him, he's like, listen to me. And then he says, fiends are like any other devil. He's like, drop the sympathy. He's like, don't, just because they look like humans, don't treat them as such, right? And he says, my entire family was killed by a devil in front of me. So we find a little bit out about Aki in this. We find out that his family was killed by a devil in front of him. And I'm guessing that Makima came and saved him, perhaps. And that's why he owes her his life. And so then he says that the police there, he's like, I had drinks with the cops down below. He's like, they're risking their lives to protect their wives and kids. So he connects to the police and he's like, look, they're just trying to do their jobs. They're trying to be like me and save their families so they don't end up like me without one. So he's like, don't insult them by trying to like go easy on these devils. He's like, everyone is serious about this except you. And I would disagree with him. I think Denji is serious. He just doesn't have like a revenge complex or anything. He's just like, no, I'm just doing my thing, right? He's like, I'd rather make any devil I kill suffer as much as possible. He's like, are you trying to be friends with them? And Denji's like, well, if there's a devil I could be friends with, then yeah, I would. And again, Aki's like just twitches. He's like, because I don't have any friends. Yeah, he's like, you're not being much of a friend. So Denji says, he's like, if a devil would be friends, sure. I don't have any friends. Sounds good to me. So I feel like Aki's like, well, shit. He's like, I feel like Aki is realizing that Denji is very dangerous because if he's powerful like Makima, I think Aki's like connecting things together that, okay, if Makima took him under his wing, he's strong. If he's strong, he could be a threat. If he's willing to become friends with other devils, that does not bode well for us. So we need to keep him under his wing. So now I think Aki is getting why Makima keeps him so close to the vest, because he's seeing that, oh, this kid's super naive and easily manipulated and could be something that could be turned against us, and that would be very bad. So that's why Makima's keeping him super close. I think Aki's realizing that, and he's like, okay. And so he lets him go. And he says, okay, I'll remember that. Yeah, I like Aki has Converse shoes on too. That's fun. And Denji's like, okay, thanks for remembering. And then this part here. So this part here where he grabs the dirty magazines. He's like, I guess I pissed him off. I'm like, no. Denji thinks that he pissed him off. I'm like, no, I don't think that's the case at all. I think that you just gave Aki like the reasons why he needs to keep you all close to the vest. Right? He's like, I was just trying to keep blood off these dirty magazines. Oh my God. And then he says, when the chainsaws are out, blood gets everywhere and it makes a real mess. He's like, I made it easy for you, so I get to keep these. So he's like, look, we did a trade-off. I killed you as humanely as possible. So the whole time, Denji killed this demon, this devil, this fiend easily. Not because he was just being humane to him, but also because he wanted the dirty magazines. Oh my God. Again, he's so innocent about it, it's endearing, right? It doesn't come across as sleazy. It comes across as charming because it's freaking Denji and he's got a dog for a heart. So he's like, I love this thing. He's like, I'm keeping this magazine. And he like sits there and looks at it for a minute to make sure that it's good. And he's like, okay, porn is secured. I can't. God, I can't. And then Pochita's like, I wanted you to show you my dream. And he's like, I am serious about this, Pochita. He's like, yeah. He's like, Pochita, I am going to show you my dream. He's like, I don't know what Aki's talking about. I'm super serious about all of this. He's like, I'm living the dream, just like our bargain said. And so then Denji's like, my dream might have come true already, but he must be chasing. I love that Denji gets poetic in this moment, like philosophical in this moment, which for Denji is, it's hilarious, but it's also kind of on the nose. Because for Denji, his dream has come true. He's like, my dream has come true. I've got toast. I've got jam. I got a hot girl I'm working for. He's like, I'm living the dream. But he is convinced that Aki is chasing his still. He thinks that Aki hasn't found his dream yet. I'm like, oh God. And then I love that he's like, what did he say there? He's like, I get to bathe every day, eat good food. I get to hang around a hot chick. He's like, my life's a 10 out of 10. But it feels like something's missing. Again, he's got the basis down, but something is missing, right? Something internally is not there. Oh my God. And then I love this. He's like, am I missing something? Something that get me a real perfect score? And then I love that he's like, he looks down at Aki. He's like, he's got to be after some revenge shit. So again, one thing I love about this series is that Denji is not out for revenge. It's not a revenge story. He's not out to like get revenge and like get vengeance for his dead father or anything like that. He's like, no, I just want to have a decent life and for it to be better than the scum I've been living the last how many years. Denji's not out for revenge. Aki clearly is out to kill the devils to get revenge on his family dying. But Denji's like, I didn't really have a family to begin with. Oh my God. It's great. He's like, they're trying to protect their families. So yeah, he like kind of goes through the mix. He's like, okay, Aki's out for revenge. The cops are trying to protect their families. They all got goals. He's like, what's my goal? He's like, what am I going to do? He's like, I wonder if Miss Makima is out for anything like that. Why is she doing what she's doing? So Denji's asking the right questions. He's like, why is she doing what she's doing? But then he gets distracted by her boobs. And then he's like, I want to touch her boobs. And he's just like crouched there. Oh my God. And then the wind blows and it's so angelic. And he's like, that's it. He's like, touching boobs is a dream I gave up a long time ago. But I got a real job now. Maybe I can pull it off. It's so simple. It's so simple that it's almost stupid. But Fujimoto, I feel, is totally aware of the shonen formula. And I've watched so many shonen over the years that I'm like, no, this is the formula, but we've substituted it for like the most basic, simple, like Akira Toriyama is sitting there watching this going, yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's great. Oda's like, damn it, he managed to pull it off. He's like, I probably couldn't score with a girl just yet, but boobs? I love that he's got the hand, right? The hand. Oh God, the hand gripping. All I'm gonna put is the hand. God, okay. Okay, so Denji's like, he's like scoring. That is a high level goal. High level goal. We're not there yet. We got to go for something that's a little bit more feasible. We can't get to home base and we can't get to home plate until we've rounded the other bases. So we got to go to first base first. We got to go for boobs first. That's first on the agenda. Oh my God. And he's just like, if I had the right plan and the willpower, then maybe everyone's serious about this except you. So that's what he meant. I found it something to be serious about. My goal. And he just like, he tilts his head like every shonen protagonist out to the wind. He's like, I've got the strength. I've got the willpower. My goal. It's boobs. Boobs. And Aki's like, pay attention, dumbass. I love it. It is, on the one hand, a parody of every seemingly grandeur goal that a shonen protagonist has had. And on the other hand, it is so perfectly fitting Denji, his basic needs, and what he has built his life up to be so far. It makes perfect sense with his character in the story, but it is also a blatant farce against shonen protagonists and their goals that it warms my heart. It's endearing. It's endearing because it's on the nose and it's self-aware. It is a very self-aware goal that Fujimoto is giving us. He's like, listen to what? And she's like, I'm assigning you a partner. I'm like, that was quick. Makima, I feel like Makima's like, this kid's kind of a wild cannon. Maybe he can help keep her in check. And he's also got a devil inside of him, so maybe they'll connect. Maybe this will all work out, right? She's like, I'll give you a partner. He's like, a partner? And Aki's like, God, why are we doing this? I love that he looks at Denji like, why are we giving him a partner? And then she has like the same kind of high tops that he does, right? So again, I'm going to just make note that while we have the vibes there with Masato and them tying to Aki, we also have the Shinji and Asuka vibes with Power and Denji. They both have these devil. Well, one is a devil that's inhabiting a corpse, and Denji's just like a step away from that. They both got the shoes. And her just walking, that fluid animation, like that boss walk, I'm like, oh my God, I love it. And he's like, who is this? She's a fiend. Mm-hmm. Yep. And she's like, prostrate yourself, humans. Oh my God, I am Power. Are you giving my so-called partner? And she's like, oh my God, I love it. And he's like, Power, your name's Power? That's a funny name. You're a fiend? Are fiends allowed to be devil hunters? And then he notices the boobs. And he's like, oh my God. I know, I loved it instantly. Okay, he's like, wait a minute. He's like, why are you a fiend? How are you allowed to be a devil hunter when you're a devil? Like, I thought that was taboo. And then he sees the boobs and he's like, whatever, nice to meet you. And Aki again, Aki looking over like, I could stare at Aki this entire episode and how much he's just like, what is wrong with you? So yeah, so we meet Power, and fiends like devils are targets for extermination. So let's talk about Power. We'll put her up here. So the thing that I like about Power in this, because she seems like an off-the-wall, like in the trailer and stuff, I was like, oh, she seems kind of like an unhinged off-the-wall character. She is, because she's literally a corpse inhabited by a devil. So she's literally a devil hiding in a corpse. And that's, and the horns are indicating of that. And she is pretty much unhinged and super cocky. So yeah, I kind of like that angle. I like that she's a monster too, but Makima's taking her in. She's like, they're targets for extermination. And she says, but Power's highly rational. She's just sitting there like smelling her finger. Highly rational. So yeah, we'll put there, she has a high intelligence for a fiend. Because yeah, the fiend that we saw back in the house seemed like pretty low level, like didn't have much intelligence. The devil wasn't, clearly this is a very powerful devil that has possessed her body. And so Makima's like, you might be useful. So she's been on Hayakawa's team. And she's like, I mentioned this before, but the Public Safety Devil Extermination Special Division 4 is experimental. And the higher-ups will be looking to dissolve your team as soon as possible if you can't get results. So she's like, I don't need to explain what would happen to you two if that happens, do I? And so basically Denji and Power, they both, because they have demons inside of them, they're both being targeted. And so if they don't help the commission and the public safety division do their job, then they're both going to be executed. So they kind of don't have a choice, right? Interesting. And they both just kind of blink. They're both like, yeah, we get it. And so we go up to the rooftop here as Power. I love Power having like the undone shirt. She's rolled up the pant legs. She has the hoodie on over it. I'm like, cosplay the hell out of her. She's like, the horns stand out a bit too much, so you have to patrol areas without a lot of pedestrians. So again, devils are known in this world enough that they can call the cops on them and stuff. So they don't want Power just roaming the streets because people will think she's a devil and try to get her exterminated. Okay. And so he's just walking along with that axe. But she's like a feral cat. She's just like sniffing out a demon, right? She's just like walking around and like Denji's having to herd a cat. It's kind of funny that he's like a dog, she's like a cat. I like the comparison between both of them. It's funny. And then yeah, and she just smacks him. And she's like, human, provide me with something to kill immediately. I'm starved for blood. And he's just like, ugh. And he sees the cat there looking at him. He's like, do I kill the cat and give it to her? But this line, oh my God, where Denji's like, I can put up with crazy as long as she's hot enough. I can do crazy if she's hot. I'm like, again, a line like that, I think only Denji can say and it be somewhat endearing. Because yeah, it's like, you don't mess with crazy. I like that I like also that Denji, he's not head over heels for power like he is with Makima. One, because Denji knows she's a dead body with a devil inside of her. So I'm sure that's a turnoff. But also because he's like, she's crazy. No, thank you. But then in the same breath, and I love that she just looks at the cat. Like, he's like, in the same breath, the question is, how do I get my hand on those boobs? So Denji is in a very delicate situation right now because he is working with a coworker who is a fiend who wants to kill things and be a devil at all times. And he has the horrible task of trying to keep her in check while also trying to figure out how can he feel her up, but not like be with her. Fujimoto. Gotta get my hands on those boobs. And then they see the cops, and so they're like, if you run into these civilians, show them your ID, and they'll give you a sour expression. They won't like it, but they'll move along and go on their way, right? And they'll leave you alone. And then she's like, oh wow, it actually worked. And so then, yeah, they're just like hanging out, and he's like, where the hell are all the devils? And she's like, oh, and I like that she does the thing with her nose, like she's sniffing it. She's like, it's probably my fault. She's like, before becoming a fiend, I was a devil that was feared by all. Demonic peons will likely flee the moment they catch my scent. And he's like, well, then how are we going to get anything done? So I like that Denji's like, well, how are we going to do our job if they keep running away from you? And it's like, I don't think Denji knows if she's lying or not, right? Or if maybe the demons just aren't around. But then, if you have any questions, just ask Hayakawa. He's the one who put you two together. And then I like that he's like, that asshole set me up. He put me with this crazy girl so that we can't go fight anything, so that we're just stuck in a limbo, just running in circles. He's like, I'm just babysitting her at this point. He's like, that asshole did it just to get away from me. It's like, yes, he did. Oh my God, I love it. He stuck me with power so I can't do anything cool. And I love his, like, he's trying to get me fired. And I love this being like, eh. Like, I love how he portrays Aki's, like, making fun of them. It seems so out of character. But then Power senses she smells blood, right? And he's like, wait a minute. Hey, crazy, where are you going? And the sea cucumber devil, the sea cucumber one. I'm like, the game is afoot. And she's like, the battle is joined. And he's like, damn it, she's fast. And so we have like another seemingly member of the Public Safety Commission. They have the swords too. So apparently a lot of them carry swords, which is interesting. Yes, it's the sea cucumber devil. Yes, the sea cucumber devil. I like they have to like explain what it is. And it's just like, it looks like a sea cucumber, but it has like fingers coming out of it. It's very gross. And so she goes down, but here's the thing. Her wrists slit to become the mallet that she uses the blood from cuts to make a weapon. Which, she's a demon, so the body's a corpse, doesn't matter anymore. Just want to say, if we're going to compare Asuka to Power, the idea of the wrists, that's all I'm going to say. You can talk in the comments down below about it. But yeah, her making the mallet, and she just bashes it, right? And just explodes it. And the guy's like, oh my God. And then she's just sitting there like, what the? And she's like, did you see the kill is mine? Like, she's just obsessed with the fact that she got to kill something. Makes sense why Makima got her to join the cause, right? Because I could see Makima tracking down Power and being like, look, if you join me, I'll let you kill all the other devils that you want. And you get the spoils. And Power would be like, okay. And Denji's just standing up there atop the roof being like, the hell? And that's the end of the episode. Oh my gosh. So yeah, I really liked this episode a lot. I've talked for like an hour. I really like this episode a lot, though. I'm really happy with Power's character. I like the gimmick that she's already dead. She's just like, she's a corpse inhabited by a demon. She's like a step beyond Denji. I like that aspect of it. Aki, I love Aki's character. I love how he expresses himself. I love how they've animated that. I love just how straight-laced and serious he is. And it's a perfect foil to Denji and Power, who are unhinged. And Denji's kind of in the middle of it all. Like, Power is crazy unhinged. Aki is super, like, straightforward and tight-gripped. Makima is, like, the big power player here. And Denji's just kind of in the middle trying to figure it all out. But our boy has a goal. He's not going to just score with Makima. Makima that's in-game material. That's a long game. Short game right now is we got to touch some boobs. And I can't believe I am on board a series with a shonen protagonist whose main goal is to grab a lady's breasts. But here we are. But he's so darn endearing. So yeah, this is a great setup episode. We didn't even get him in Chainsaw Man mode. It's fine. The Sea Cucumber Devil is like the only one we really got other than the Fiend. It was a very good, solid setup. Has me excited to see where it goes and for what's going to happen with these characters. So there we go. But yeah, so I'm excited. I'm curious to know your thoughts down below. But I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care. And yeah, I'll be back next week with more Chainsaw Man.